After years of DC putting out stinker after stinker and criminally assassinating some of fiction's most beloved characters time and time again, Marvel was dominating the superhero movie space. DC was in desperate need of a change. And Gunn's new DC universe is exactly what we needed as superhero and movie lovers alike. The Gunn simply does not jam, and for DC to be dropping heat like this and us finally having some competition in these films, God, it makes me so excited. I really don't know how Marvel let him go after the phenomenal work he did on the Guardians trilogy, but boy am I so glad they did, because this movie was peak. With Matt Reeves' The Batman universe and now Gunn's DCU opening so strongly, Marvel is going to have to step up their game and never release any garbage like the Marvels again. Competition is overall always better for us as consumers because it's going to force both companies to step up their game. And the ball is now in Marvel's court after such a banger to open the DCU. I felt like I was 12 years old watching Justice League Unlimited again. It was so comic booky and I just couldn't get enough of it. The soundtrack was electric. I loved the reimagined score that felt modern while still paying tribute to what came before. And now, I want to talk a little more in depth on the story and the characters, so I'm going to issue one big spoiler warning here. If you haven't already, please get to your local movie theater and watch this on the big screen. I love the way this film opens. We're given a few key pieces of information and we skip all the BS, all the origin story. We're just thrown right into this world that feels so established and already lived in. And I love how this was done. The plot gets instantly rolling and we're fed so much information so quickly, and somehow it all works. The story all centers around an international conflict that Superman basically steps into and stops one country from invading another. But the first thing we're shown in this film is our hero beaten and sprawled out. And I think this does a really good job at humbling Superman and making him feel a lot more relatable to us. I have seen a lot of people online complain about how Superman felt way too weak in this movie, but I feel like people aren't thinking about it the right way. We're told at the beginning that this is the first time that Superman has ever lost a battle, and the general public is already well aware of how powerful Superman is. Nobody wants to watch our hero just annihilate everybody the whole movie. We want to see how our hero is challenged and how they rise up to the occasion and respond to adversity. To be fair though, I did feel like almost every fight scene someone would show up to help Clark out, but regardless of strength, I thought David Cornswell did an exceptional job playing Superman and was able to convey strength while still showing the more compassionate, soft side of the character perfectly. I loved how he would do everything in his power to save lives at every opportunity he could. While I wish we did get a little more time to see his portrayal of Clark Kent, I had no issues with what I did see. We got a decent amount of time in the Daily Planet, which I really enjoyed, and I thought Jimmy Olsen was a fun addition to the film and was a much better portrayal than how horribly Zack Snyder did my boy. And while I did like Lois as a character, her dynamic with Clark was a little underwhelming for me. We don't really get too much time to see them interact with each other, but there's a lot going on in this movie, so I could see how it's hard to squeeze in. We do get this really cool scene of Lois interviewing Clark as Superman and basically just rage baiting him for his actions in the international conflict. But by far my favorite moment between the two, and possibly the most impactful line of the movie for me, however, was the scene where Lois basically tells Clark, "You're not punk rock because you see the best in everybody." And his response is, "Maybe that's the real punk rock." And I think this is so amazing for the character as Superman on so many levels that I can make a whole video on that alone. But basically he ends up telling her he loves her, and she was basically about to break up with him, which is crazy because he's Superman, until the main conflict of the film where he saves the whole world, and then she's like, "Okay, I guess I love you." Who stole the show for me, however, was Lex Luthor. Nicholas Hoult was probably the standout performance of the film for me. I just loved how passionately and relentlessly he hated on Superman. Like, you could tell he was getting genuine joy from the shit he was doing. And he really put Superman through it in this film. He's moving like an absolute boss, running a huge operation all dedicated to Superman's downfall. He's the brains, and he has Ultraman, who's a clone of Superman, who Lex is basically trained with like tons of counter moves specifically for Clark, and the Engineer, who is this cyborg woman who can turn into anything. And I actually think that Lex and Ultraman is a great challenge for Superman, because he's basically just fighting himself, but with a really smart guy telling him what to do. But Lex was amazing. His speech about how he is so dedicated to hating on him and reveals the whole international conflict was all just a ploy so he could get his hands on Superman, about how he hates Clark for being so strong and how it highlights how weak we all are and makes people forget how smart he is it was peak. But basically, Lex ends up unleashing this kaiju into Metropolis, and him and his lackeys break into the Fortress of Solitude. And while they're inside, the engineer is able to repair this damaged video that Clark's parents left for him, which reveals that their true intentions for Superman was to rule the planet and basically take a bunch of wives and spread Krypton's genes and try to, be king. Lex reveals this to the public and leverages this to get the government's approval to bring Clark in and in turn kill him. During the battle with the kaiju, we get our first look at the Justice Gang, a small group of heroes consisting of Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl. And I loved this group and thought that they all had a good chance to flesh out their characters a bit. If you would have told me 5 years ago that we would be having a live-action Guy Gardner on the screen, I would have called you crazy. But here we are, the Big 25, and Nathan Fillion is absolutely killing this role. He plays such a perfect, lovable douchebag. And while he was definitely a side character and we didn't get too much screen time with him, every time he popped up, he managed to get a laugh out of me. And I can't wait to see more of him in the future. However, the definitive star of this group was Mr. Terrific, and he was amazing in this movie. He was so sassy and really felt like a super genius. His fight scene during his side quest with Lois, where he's just demolishing fools with his T-spheres, was so peak. And I'm so glad that Eddie Gathegi got his superhero redemption after his role in X-Men First Class. If you know, you know. While Hawkgirl was definitely the member of the group who got the least screen time, I think the movie still did a good job of characterizing her a little bit and has me really excited to see her in more future projects. After the truth of Superman's parents comes out, the public turns on Clark and he turns himself in, and Lex is actually placed in charge of detaining him and decides to put him in a pocket universe. And this is where we get our first chance to see Metamorpho, who is played by Anthony Carrigan and who absolutely killed the role. I love the practical effects and thought the way they displayed his powers was amazing. But this is where we get to see just how evil Lex is. You see, he's brainwashed monkeys into posting hate on Superman online, and he's even torturing the dog Krypto. He forces Metamorpho to turn himself into kryptonite to torture Clark, and then the movie takes an unexpectedly dark turn. Lex brings out some random guy that was literally just nice to Superman at the start of the movie, and just blows his brains out in front of him. This is so jarring that it basically causes Metamorpho to switch sides and help Clark escape. Lex gets so mad at Superman escaping that he decides to just let the portal go crazy and tear reality apart to draw him out. And we get this really nice scene of Superman showing up to save the very last person evacuating the city before he heads to throw down with both Ultraman and the engineer. And they actually nearly kill him before it's revealed to us that he's been fighting himself this entire time. He ends up chucking the clone into a black hole with the help of Krypto, and he heads over to confront Lex with Mr. Terrific to close the portal. Lex's plans end up to be revealed to the world by the Daily Planet crew, and the day is saved. The film closes out with a really heartfelt scene of Clark at the Fortress of Solitude, and he's watching the video of his real parents, the parents that raised him in the US. And I thought this was really sweet, and the song absolutely slapped. I didn't really touch much on the music in this film, but I thought it all worked very well and matched with the tone of the film perfectly. And I'd say that's a pretty good summary. I left out a couple things, but if you haven't gone and seen the movie, get your ass in theaters, bro. What can I say? I heard a lot of people complain about how the vibes of this movie were too similar to the Guardians films and felt too lighthearted, too campy, but I love it. And man, does James Gunn know ball. There are tons of little Easter eggs to future storylines hinted at that could easily be missed in a first watch. I remember in Peacemaker Season 1, Batmite was mentioned, and that's when I knew DC was in good hands. Gunn's directorial style is perfect for these comic book movies, and especially for the vibe of this universe that they're going for. And in a recent interview, Gunn stated that not all of the DCU projects are going to be directed by Gunn himself. He said that future films in this universe will be all very tonally different so that nobody gets bored. And I really love how he's going to let the artists working on the films just run wild. I think that's how we're going to get the best actual content. Apparently, Clayface is going to get a solo movie that's going to be like body horror and will take inspiration from the two-part story in Batman the Animated Series, and I think that is amazing. I think the direction he's going in is great. He's having the same actors play the voice actors of their animated counterparts. He's letting the artists and creative minds working these projects run wild, and my expectations for the DCU have already been raised through the roof. Overall, as you could tell, I hated it, and that's why I have to give it a 0 out of 5. Hashtag super shit. Just kidding. What can I say? It was super. I thought it was a beautiful love letter to the character and exactly what DC needed right now. The message that this film is trying to get across is just to be a better person and hope. And I think that is exactly what the world needs to hear right now. And I'm going to give it a strong 4 out of 5. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to the end, I love you. If you want to drop a comment, I would love to discuss the movie with you guys, see if you guys are as excited for James Gunn's new DCU as I am. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.